everybody, this is an experiment that I am doing to see if I can read a story to you and you can hear me talk about it. What we would have done if we had school is I would have read the story Three Skeleton Key to you, and I would have gone over the sections of it because it shows what makes a good story. Like, you need to have an exposition. You need to have info about setting and info about characters. When you guys do a narrative next week, so it'll be due May 8th, it isn't this week, but next week, you need to have a story where you start with showing a character, at least one character, and info about the setting. So what I want to do is read to you the exposition of Three Skeleton Key so that you can get a sense of it, because often the exposition sets the tone, whether it's going to be happy, whether it's going to be creepy. So here we go. This is Three Skeleton Key by George Tudos. I'm not sure that I pronounced that right, but that's okay. Now, this is first person, so a character is telling the story. My most terrifying experience? Well, one does have a few in 35 years of service in the lights, although it's mostly monotonous, routine work. Keeping the light in order, making out the reports. When I was a young man, not very long in the service, there was an opening in a lighthouse newly built off the coast of Guyana, on a small rock 20 miles or so from the mainland. The pay was high, so in order to reach the sum I had set out to save before I married, I volunteered for service in the new light. Three Skeleton Key, the small rock on which the light stood, bore a bad reputation. Now you guys can see that this is the setting of a negative tone, talking about skeletons, bad reputation. So I'm going to continue on. This is important. You might want to set the tone when you write your own story as well. Three Skeleton Key, the small rock on which the light stood, bore a bad reputation. It earned its name from the story of the three convicts who, escaping from Cayenne in a stolen dugout canoe, were wrecked on the rock during the night, managed to escape the sea, but eventually died of hunger and thirst. When they were discovered, nothing remained but 3 heaps of bones picked clean by the birds. The story was that the 3 skeletons, gleaming with phosphorescent light, danced over the small rock, screaming. But there are many such stories, and I did not give the warnings of the old-timers at the Ile de Seine. That's a boat. You'll see that boat titles are italicized. At the Ile de Seine, a second thought. I signed up, boarded ship, and in a month I was installed at the light. Picture a gray, tapering cylinder, welded to the solid black rock by iron rods and concrete, rising from a small island 20-odd miles from land. It lay in the midst of the sea, this island, a small bare piece of stone, about 150 feet long, perhaps 40 wide. Small, barely large enough for a man to walk about and stretch his legs at low tide. Now notice, this is description, and when you do a story of your own, you should try to give a description of the place so that the reader has a sense of where it's taking place. This is an advantage one doesn't find in all lights, however, for some of them rise sheer from the waves, with no room for one to move save within the light itself. Still, on our island, one must be careful, for the rocks were treacherously smooth. One misstep, and down you would fall into the sea. Not that the risk of drowning was so great, but the waters about our island swarmed with huge sharks, who kept an eternal patrol around the base of the light. Now, guys, notice that we have a few words that set a negative tone. It talks about drowning, it talks about sharks, it talks about these sharp rocks. These details all get together to convey kind of a negative tone. So they're on this lighthouse, it's kind of claustrophobic. There are many details that have like a bad mood to it. Still, it was a nice life there. We had enough provisions to last for months, in the event that the sea should become too rough for the supply ship to reach us on schedule. During the day, we would work about the light, cleaning the rooms, polishing the metalwork and the lens and reflector of the light itself, and at night we would sit on the gallery and watch our light, a 20,000 candle power lantern swinging its strong white bar of light over the sea from the top of its 120-foot tower. Some days, when the air would be very clear, we could see the land, a thread-like line to the west. To the east, north, and south stretched the ocean. Landman perhaps would soon have tired of that kind of life. Perched on a small island off the coast of South America, notice we have the place, for 18 weeks until one's turn for leave ashore came around. But we liked it there, my 2 fellow tenders and myself. So much so that for 22 months on end, with the exception of shore leaves, I was greatly satisfied with the life on Three Skeleton Key. I had just returned from my leave at the end of June, that is to say midwinter in that latitude, and had settled down to the routine with my 2 fellow keepers, a Breton by the name of Leglio. So notice we have our 2 supporting characters. We have Leglio and we have Ichua. And if you look at the footnotes, you'll see what that refers to. Breton relates to Brittany, an area of France, and Basque is an area of Spain that is close to France. So we have the narrator, we have Leglio, and we have Ichua. So notice this is still part of the exposition because it's giving us a few characters that we're going to see later on. You want to do that in your story too. You want to have a main character, but also supporting characters. So guys, what I want you to notice is in this intro, we have a setting, we have characters, and we have a bit of a mood. So this is really what I consider the end of an exposition. And this is how you would start your story. Maybe it wouldn't be as long as this exposition, but you would have it, okay? So now I'm going to move on to the second part of what you should have in your story. And you should see this as going along with the plot diagram. We have the exposition, then we're moving in to our rising action, and we have a problem. And you're going to see very soon what this problem is. 8 days went by as usual. Then on the 9th night after my return, Ichua, who was on night duty, called Leglio and me, sleeping in our rooms in the middle of the tower at 2 in the morning. We rose immediately and climbing the 30 or so steps that led to the gallery, stood beside our chief. Ichua pointed, and following his finger, we saw a big 3-master, that's a big boat, with all sail set, heading straight for the light. A queer course, for the vessel must have seen us. Our light lit her with the glare of day each time it passed over her. Now ships were a rare sight in our waters, for our light was a warning of treacherous reefs, barely hidden under the surface and running far out to sea. Consequently, we were always given a wide berth, especially by sailing vessels, which cannot maneuver as readily as steamers. No wonder that we were surprised at seeing this 3-master heading dead for us in the gloom of early morning. I had immediately recognized her lines, for she stood out plainly, even at the distance of a mile, when our light shone on her. She was a beautiful ship of some 4,000 tons, a fast sailer that had carried cargoes to every part of the world, plowing the seas unceasingly. By her lines, she was identified as Dutch-built, which was understandable, as Paramaribo and French Guiana are very close to Cayenne. Watching her sailing dead for us, a white wave boiling under her bows, Leglio cried out, "What's wrong with her crew? Are they all drunk or insane? Can't they see us?" Ichua nodded soberly and looked at us sharply as he remarked, "See us? No doubt, if there is a crew aboard." "What do you mean, Chief?" Leglio had started, turned to the Basque. "Are you saying that she's the Flying Dutchman?" And at the bottom of the page, it tells us that the Flying Dutchman is a ghost ship. So the problem that's in this story is that all of a sudden there's a ship going toward them, and they don't know why. They don't know if there's people, if it's a ghost ship somehow. So this is a complication. And when you guys write your own story, you should have some kind of problem. It doesn't have to be life or death, but it should be some kind of problem. And you should also use dialogue. And you can see how dialogue is used to enhance the story. You have Leglio showing how upset he is. And you can see Ichua giving his opinion that there might not be a crew aboard. So you should do dialogue as well. I'm going to continue on a bit more and then stop because I think I only have 15 minutes on a video. "What do you mean, Chief?" Leglio had started, turned to the Basque. "Are you saying that she's the Flying Dutchman?" His sudden fright had been so evident that the older man laughed. "Ha ha ha. No, old man, that's not what I meant. If I say that no one's aboard, I mean she's a derelict. Then we understood her queer behavior. Ichiwa was right. For some reason, believing her doomed, her crew had abandoned her. Then she had righted herself and sailed on, wandering with the wind. The three of us grew tense as the ship seemed about to crash on one of our numerous reefs, but she suddenly lurched with some change of the wind. The yard swung around, and the derelict came clumsily about and sailed dead away from us. In the light of our lantern, she seemed so sound, so strong, that Ichiwa exclaimed impatiently, "But why the devil was she abandoned? Nothing is smashed, no sign of fire, and she doesn't sail as if she were taking water." Leglio waved to the departing ship. Bon voyage. Ooh, spelling word. He smiled at Ichiwa and went on. "She's leaving us, Chief, and now we'll never know what—" "No, she's not," cried the Basque. "Look, she's turning." As if obeying his words. Now notice there's suspense because the boat is going toward them, then away, then back toward them. And that's what you can do. You can play with the reader into believing that something's going to happen, but then it could go in a completely different direction. That's what good storytellers do. The use of suspense, the use of foreshadowing, dialogue, all those things combining together to have great literature. As if obeying his words, the derelict three-master stopped, came about, and headed for us once more. And for the next 4 hours, the vessel played around us, zigzagging, coming about, stopping, then suddenly lurching forward. No doubt some freak of current and wind, of which our island was the center, kept her near us. Then suddenly the tropic dawn broke. The sun rose, and it was day, and the ship was plainly visible as she sailed past us. Our light extinguished, we returned to the gallery with our glasses, those are binoculars, and inspected her. The three of us focused our glasses on her poop deck and saw, standing out sharply, black letters on the white background of a life ring, the stenciled name Cornelius de Witt, Rotterdam. We had read her lines correctly. She was Dutch. Just then the wind rose and the Cornelius de Witt changed course, leaned to port, and headed straight for us once more. But this time she was so close that we knew she would not turn in time. "Thunder!" cried Leglio, his Breton soul aching at seeing a fine ship doomed to smash upon a reef. "She's going to pile up. She's gone." I shook my head. Yes, and ashamed to see that beautiful ship wreck herself, and we're helpless. There was nothing we could do but watch. A ship sailing with all sail spread, creaming the sea with her forefoot as she runs before the wind, is one of the most beautiful sights in the world. But this time, I could feel the tears stinging in my eyes as I saw this fine ship headed for her doom. So notice we have some kind of important event. We have the ship that is about to crash. Now on the next page, we get insight as to what might have caused this. Notice there is a picture of, you can see, all this time our glasses were riveted on her and we suddenly cried out together, "The rats!" Now we knew why this ship in perfect condition was sailing without her crew aboard. They had been driven out by the rats. Not those poor specimens of rats you see ashore, barely reaching the length of 1 foot from their trembling noses to the tip of their skinny tails. Wretched creatures that dodge and hide at the mere sound of a footfall. So now we have kind of the solution to the problem. So you should think when you're writing a story about having an exposition with setting and characters, you should have rising action, some kind of problem, like the fact that this ship is coming closer and then away and closer. And then maybe you want to have some kind of a solution. Like in this, we now know that it's the rats. I am going to stop this video now because it's coming up upon 15 minutes. But in the next one, I'm going to show you the continuation of the rising action, which you should have, the climax, falling action, and resolution. Because you're going to write your own story on a subject of your choice and include dialogue and all these story parts, okay? So stay tuned for the next video. Bye!